world, all of you watching and listening from home, you join in prayer as well for this moment. And
you can be sure even the new Pope hears all this in the background, because it's a lot of strong sound that's coming up there and propagating up into the areas there, in the buildings and just outside the loggia there as well. You can hear that, know that from experience.
Right.
The sounds of the streets, the sounds of the square.
Well, and it must be a sign of, I mean, they must feel encouraged hearing the cheers, the music, because this is a big moment for anyone. And then to come out into the loggia and see thousands upon thousands of people. I mean, if public speaking is not your thing, that would be very intimidating. And so to hear the support of the band and the people clapping and cheering must be extra special for that person.
Absolutely, a huge encouragement as well. Apart from the weight of the office and accepting and realizing the challenge, the immense challenge that we'll be taking on, and responsibility, but encouraged by what is the fanfare we're seeing and hearing in St. Peter's Square right now. And as I mentioned, the crowds are filtering in. They do their security check before that, but the square is slowly filling up there with people coming in last minute to be here. Of course, they're lucky they have enough time, because we have about this almost 1 hour before the new Pope will appear. And so we see in the blue there the gendarmes, the Vatican gendarmes, and the band they have there, and then of course the Swiss Guard uniform there in position. So.
Well, and just again behind the scenes, looking back behind all the process that's happening, I think is so interesting to think we're seeing the crowds waiting, cheering, trying to keep spirits up while they wait the hour or more until we know who the Pope is. And I think, as we're talking about, prayer is also a central part of this aspect as well. I mean, before the Pope comes out, we see the first ceremony, the greeting, the Te Deum, where in the Sistine Chapel, after being dressed and saying yes, the Pope goes back to the Sistine Chapel and he takes a seat on a chair and a ceremony begins. And it's introduced with a greeting from the senior cardinal of the Order of Bishops, and then they read a passage from the Gospel, which, as we talked about with Liz and also Dr. O'Donnell, I mean, it grounds the mission of the Pope, the office of the Pope in the Gospel, in the message that Christ gave to Peter, feed my sheep, tend to my sheep. So I don't know, it's a really special moment, I think, when you look behind what's happening right now as we wait for the Pope.
And speaking of the ground,
just in the unbroken line of passing the authority and the responsibility of the papacy from Peter all the way on.
And now, going on the ground there in the square, we have Sister Nina Krankic, who's from Croatia and is with us there in the square, and she works here at Vatican News and is going to share us tell us more about her own experience there in the square. Sister Nina, can you hear us? Sister Nina, you must have run out of the building there to get there in the square, because I mentioned the crowds coming in now there's got to be some bottleneck there, isn't there? So it must feel like a big party almost, I imagine, in some ways, doesn't it?
Now the Italians are coming in.
And we can hear the bands there. We see the Italian Carabinieri band that's coming into the square as well. So I imagine it's adding to the festive atmosphere you're living there. Listen. All right, Sister Nina, thanks for giving us that update there, and we look forward to connecting with you there again when possible. We know how it's a little tough with the cell signal there, given all the people communicating live on their cell phones and the networks there being a bit saturated. But thank you, and wonderful. And Sister Nina, by the way, this is your first experience of this type, isn't it? Your first conclave, and so it must be extra special for you. Wonderful. All righty, Sister Nina, thank you so much for sharing that with us, and we'll hope to touch base with you there shortly, okay? All right, in the meantime, good luck getting in the square there. All right.
Well, and continuing, as we mentioned before, the atmosphere, but also what we're seeing. You see the bands, Father, as you mentioned, now the Italians as well, coming up the stairs that we often saw the Pope Mobile drive up for general audiences. And shortly, we're not sure exactly when, but when the Pope comes out, there's a formula that is said in Latin. And for many of us, we might not have studied Latin in school. I mean, my Latin is quite rusty. So I don't know if maybe, Father, you know a bit more about what's going to be said, and for those who might not know, what is the formula? What is said?
Well, it says the proto-deacon, and it's Cardinal Monberti is the proto-deacon right now, will come out and say, I have an announcement of great joy, and then he says, we have a Pope, Habemus, papam. I saw some signs there, and they didn't have the correct conjugation of papa, but that's okay. The fact is, the news is and it's almost universal language now in terms of communicating the fact that we now have a Pope.
And then after that, he announces the name.
The name, yes, in Latin. And so I'll tell you a funny story of that too. A friend of mine was in the square when Paul VI was elected. And he was standing, he's from the U.S., he was a student at the North American College. And no, it was when John Paul II was elected. And he was standing next to an Italian woman, and they announced that the Pope was from Polonia, and this Italian woman crossed herself and said, "Grazie a Dio da Bologna."
Da Bologna.
That guy from Bologna. Yes. You can hear Polonia in Italian meaning Poland.
Yeah, it's tricky. If you don't know Italian or Latin, it might be a bit confusing. But no, it's extra special, and as you mentioned, I mean, I remember watching with some of my colleagues here at the start of this week some of the compilations from the Habemus papams that we have video or audio of, which is only in the last, just over 100 years that we have video, and it's been really interesting because whether you know Latin or not, you know that phrase and you know what it means, and so it's a big signal to a new chapter in the church.
And I'm thinking that the last announcement was by Cardinal Jean-Louis Touron, whom I worked with a great deal, and he made that announcement, and it was so good. And he's gone home to heaven, but I'm sure he's now rejoicing once again tonight.
That's right. I remember him very well when he announced introduced Pope Francis, and I remember even hearing his name. I was going, who? And then I looked it up very quickly because, as always, it's a surprise.
Right.
It's a surprise, and
And you don't know, like, because we have such a list of people, and as we've said throughout this entire Smoke Watch, that it's the Holy Spirit that guides the decision, and so we don't know till that moment.
Here we see a formation of the Italian military bands,
Yes.
you know,
Wow.
Guardia di Finanza, Carabinieri, and then of course the gendarmes, the Vatican Gendarmerie, their own band, and then we have the Swiss Guards all in position there. We see the usually at a point after the Pope appears, so there'll be a mutual salute of both national anthems
Here's
and hymns.
the retired
Papal preacher.
Papal preacher, and also then there's
Cardinal Raniero
Cardinal-
canta la messa, looking
Yes.
at his phone there, we see.
Technology.
And then Capuchin Cardinal there.
and also Cardinal Sean from Boston.
Exactly.
O'Malley.
Exactly, Sean O'Malley. So here we are. The bands are playing. Introduction here to the Vatican anthem. Oh no, the Italian anthem. Sorry.
That's true. The hymns, the songs will be going on until we hear that famous line of Habemus, papam, and we see the Pope come out on the balcony.
So we're hearing notes from the Italian national anthem. Fratelli d'Italia. And we've just heard those, you know, the Vatican hymn and then the Italian national anthem played. Mutual salute between the two groups of bands. And now the mutual salute and greeting of both. This is just like when we see at Easter and
Yes,
at
and
Christmas,
the Urbi et Orbi.
during the Urbi et Orbi, when the Pope gives his blessing to the city and to the world. And before that, his Christmas or Easter message. So the bands are lined up there as we await the curtains to be pulled back there from the central loggia of St. Peter's Basilica there.
And even though the Holy See is a separate country, it's important for Italy to be involved in this too, because he's also the Bishop of Rome. So it's his flock is in Rome as well.
Actually, just now taking off my headphones to hear some of the ambient sound, you could hear kind of the craziness that's going on outside. You could hear helicopters, ambulances, fire trucks, everything. And so, I mean, even at the end of Via Conciliazione, where we are, you can hear the excitement and the festivities that's happening outside.
Monsignor, I think some of that chimney smoke has gotten
To me, yes.
There's a lot of pollen in the air.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Allergy time. Yeah. As we head into summer, what a stunning view there. We have the sun just going down behind the facade of St. Peter's. It's always stunning, you know, when it comes time to sunset there with the facade facing east, but then when you're looking at the basilica and the sun going down behind it. It's always
So beautiful.
so beautiful. Yeah.
But everybody's eyes are on this.
Yeah, everybody's looking up,
Yes.
waiting for the doors to open and then the white curtains to be pulled back.
Well, And there's actually a story about what's happening right now. Again, the Room of Tears, the Pope, the new Pope, getting dressed, and we know that there are 3 sizes of the white cassocks because you don't know who's going to be elected, but you have to be prepared. And actually, one of our colleagues, Christopher Wells, who was on this morning actually on the Smoke Watch, was talking about Pope John the 23rd, and he was.
That's a letter.
And actually, since it didn't fit, they had to tie it like a medical garment.
Exactly.
And so it's a funny little anecdote to just remember that. I mean, no one knows, and so everyone's prepared. But that's what's going on right now. They're trying on the garments, and they're seeing what's fitting.
And of course, they have different sizes available to start with.
Yes.
But sometimes they might need adjusting, depending.
Exactly. We're all made in God's image and likeness in different sizes. So there you go.
See all those flags representing the different nations present. Also, it is the Jubilee of Hope, and so we have pilgrims here for Jubilee events over these days as well. I think I read about 15,000 for currently in Rome just for the Jubilee themed events. For pilgrimages that are organized well ahead of time.
Well, and we're hearing from our producer, Francesca Merlo, that they're looking outside our building, and as I mentioned, there's helicopters, but they're blocking off the roads, and that's what Liz was mentioning too, that people are stopping, and they're just trying to get to the square as fast as they can. So it's a moment of organized chaos a bit in the square and around the Vatican.
We have reports that there are people literally running to get into the square. And they will eventually, as they go through the checks and controls there. They do an extraordinary job of the crowd control as well, with these many people coming into St. Peter's Square and avoiding any potential problems or issues due to that. So. Well,
and that is, you have to think that, I mean, maybe everything has a purpose, right? Everything has a reason, because we have this time in between the white smoke and the Habemus papam, maybe also for everyone to get to the square. It's a dual-edged sword. The new Pope is being prepared and ready to go to the loggia, but it's also to let everyone who can get to the square to be there for that special moment.
And we're seeing it with our Vati drone footage here, as I'd like to call it. And you can see the square there. It's just wonderful. You can get a sense of the crowds, and then on the people kind of streaming in from the main avenue in some of the side streets there.
Talking about the universality of the church, I just got a message from a UN official in Gaza who's listening to this transmission, and so you could see how connected people are, and how grateful they are to be able to hear Vatican news as well.
Yeah, of course.
We're grateful to have you here to say some nice, intelligent things for us.
I don't know.
As well as and give us some interesting input on all, and to share this experience. As you see, our drone footage there shows our Vati drone is showing the avenue there filling up with people, and as they come closer to the square, then they just go through a check there.
And all the flags are ready.
And Thaddeus, since you've been, this is your third conclave in Rome.
In Rome, yes.
And
well,
so
I haven't been a conclave elsewhere.
No, but you've been in Rome.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
But have you ever had the opportunity, because I know working here, we're always pretty much in here, but have you ever had the chance to run out to the square or see the excitement?
For Pope Benedict, I was up there on the colonnade there. If you're looking here on the footage here, you can see here on the left side there on that colonnade there where the statues are, on top of the Charlemagne wing of the colonnade. I was up there and able to just view from that position where all the photographers, videographers were, or most of them anyway, accredited, to see him come out and greet the crowds and give his blessing. And I remember, this is a strange thing, but after that event, going back into the Vatican and running into Cardinal Jorge Bergoglio.
Oh my gosh.
This is long after probably about an hour after the blessing was given at the end of the. And I remember it distinctly because I knew the faces of all the cardinals, and so it was a.
Little did you know.
Little did I know. Little did I know. And then when there we see some of the cardinals there. There's Cardinal. I think that's Cardinal Wuerl, and we see, and then.
Cantamessa,
and
O'Malley.
The cardinal non-electors.
Yeah, exactly. They're over 80,
And
so
there's
they're non-electors.
Sister Petrina,
Yes.
the head of the Governaturato now.
And that's Archbishop Fisichella as well, I think.
And we see the
texting.
secretary of the dicastery for communication there, Monsignor Lucio Luis, as well. Anyway.
Well, and so that is, was it? I mean, obviously it's very different being inside here, but the excitement is still pretty much the same, being on the braccio, the colonnade, and being
very
here.
much so, because you're seeing things up close, and not only into the bells I was mentioning earlier that you hear very clearly and loudly, but then seeing from a unique angle, almost at below the level of the central loggia, but higher up from down in the square. In 2013, then I remember I was down the street on the Conciliazione, looking out the window at the crowds on Via della Conciliazione, and I could see the central loggia from which Pope Francis appeared then in 2013. So that was my other experience per se, and a unique one at that. And now here in our studio here, right close to the action there.
Exactly.
It's a third privileged experience. Again, what's really you really feel is the excitement of it, and the joy of having a new pope, but then also the expectation. Who's it going to be?
Right.
And I remember with Pope Benedict, it was a bit the weather was a bit cloudy and cool then. I mean, this is a day of just brilliant sunshine, mild temps. Of course, we're in May, and so things warm up here quite a bit and pretty quickly.
When Pope Francis was elected, I was helping out at an English-speaking parish in Geneva, in addition to my other work. And the pastor had asked me to give a talk to the parents of the First Communion children. And we got the news just as I was ready to start the talk. So I knew tonight I'm not going to get anything else done with this.
Wow. So you've gotten the announcement in different places all around the world.
Yes.
No, that's amazing. And every time just a tad different. And
we have joining us Father Paul Samasumo, who's from Zambia, and he's head of the English Africa section here at Vatican News and the Dicastery for Communication. Father Samasumo, good to have you here. Many of our listeners who listen to the liturgies will recognize your voice as well as you do the commentaries for the papal events. How's this experience for you now?
Thanks, TJ. Actually, I've been here all day. And then I went outside to meet someone, and you won't believe I got blocked. I could hardly come in. I've been trying to come back for the last 10 minutes, but fortunately the security forces allowed me when I showed my badge. And, people are just running into the square. It's amazing. It's my first conclave. I came in just after Pope Francis had been elected.
So this is quite an experience for you.
It is an experience for me as well, yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Even just the moments leading up to this experience. I live in a house where some of the cardinals also were staying before they moved to Santa Marta. Of course, they had their own little tables, and sometimes we'll just provoke them. They had shown secrecy, of course, confidentiality, but it was so wonderful, and the dedication of them going to the congregations, the meetings, and even the non-electors, some of them live there permanently in our house. And we have some of the staff who have been helping. They had to also do the swearing in, so that they would be. Some of them couldn't go because they're small children and they wanted to stay next to their children. So it has been a great experience, even from that point of view.
Well, and also, since you're from Zambia, how do you think people in Africa, the African continent, are taking this moment? I mean, we have viewers, listeners from all around the world, but your experience in watching the conclave and being prepared for this Habemus papam moment, like, what do you think is the atmosphere, the environment of people watching in Africa?
It's a great moment. I can tell you already I've received about 5 or 6 calls just within the space of 10 minutes as I was coming in.
Wow.
From some of my colleagues who are in the media. And I think the most, the call that I really enjoyed was from my uncle. My uncle is 82, and Usually we talk to him through my aunt because there's a problem of hearing. But he's so excited, so everybody's following. They're following on various channels there, the national television stations, on radio, and so forth. It's a great moment, and knowing Africa, they've always been fascinated by the pops. I remember even from a time when I was a young boy myself in catechism, we used to be taught the anthem, the papal anthem.
Really?
Yeah.
So that was very familiar for you to hear.
Not this one, but that old one that was translated in our languages.
Oh, wonderful. Translated in your language?
Yes. Yeah.
In your language? Or
Yes,
languages?
exactly.
And what are your languages, by the way? Just
Well, I'm from Zambia, and Zambia has 72 languages.
Oh my goodness.
Of which 8 or so are the main ones that's widely spoken. English is the official language, so you can get by with that.
Fantastic. I imagine people tune in even to our live streams, even if it's in Italian, Latin, or with your translation in English. I imagine it's a way to connect people. Tune in the same, even if they don't understand what's being said.
It is, and some directors of some of our Catholic radio stations. I'll give you an example. In Kenya alone, there are about 11 Catholic radio stations.
Wow.
So they've been asking, what time is the smoke? Why are we having the smoke? Yeah.
Well, and it's really interesting now that we have you, Father Paul, in here, because as we heard from Father Bob, we had a message from Gaza, listening there, and then now you hearing messages from all over, and so it's the wide-reaching effect of this moment, and as the message or the theme that we've seen throughout our conversation has been universality, and how this is not just a moment for people here in Rome, and not just for Catholics, for people everywhere.
In fact, I'd like to thank people around the globe tuning into our live stream here. Maybe you're watching on a local or a national network, local Catholic radio, wherever you're listening. Thanks for joining us here. We're going to be providing you with all the information we can as we await this historic moment to find out who the new Pope is. And we'll know pretty soon. It's been about a half hour or so since the
close
smoke.
to an hour.
An hour.
An hour? Okay.
It was around 6 o'clock, Rome
Okay,
time.
there you are.
It was 6:07 or something.
Like
So
that.
any moment now there. And we see the crowds are coming in to the square, still streaming in, slowly but surely. On the sides there, you can see on the right side and the left side, after they've gone through the checks there, and then coming into the square, and they can all see things pretty well because there are these big television screens and good high-res ones too in the square and along the Conciliazione Avenue leading into the square. So many people, they can see just what we're seeing all together here. These same images and coverage. Sometimes there's some text message or some subtitling there and info for them, but they can get a good idea of what's happening even if they're not up close, thanks to the nice new technology we have out there.
Well, and I'm sure, as we all talked about before, and Father Paula, you would also, I'm sure, have experience with this, but using like the screens in the square, us doing this commentary, and you have to imagine that social media is blowing up with this moment,
Oh, yes.
I mean, everyone that's in the square is live streaming, I'm sure, taking videos, taking pictures, and so the news is spreading even faster than it would have 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Exactly. Even just here in Rome, just the streets, the cafes. What I found interesting is, I'm sure you've seen the guys that sell trinkets and stuff.